everyone, it's Kathy, and today I'm going to be walking you through the different kinds of cords you can use in your macrame projects. As a beginner, it can be a little overwhelming to pick the right kind of macrame rope for your projects because there are just so many choices out there. There's different materials and sizes and styles of ropes that you can choose from for your projects. So I'm going to walk you through each of those little categories so that by the end of this video, hopefully you guys will be able to decide for yourself what rope will work best for your different projects. Let's get started. The most common and by far most popular choice of macrame ropes is using a cotton cord. Okay, so a cotton cord is going to look something like this. And what's great about cotton cord is that it is so beautiful in final projects, whether that's a wall hanging or a plant hanger or really any other project you can think of. It just looks very, very elegant and beautiful. It's also extremely soft on the hand, so it really is easy to tie a bunch of knots with this. You're not going to get any sores on your hands when using cotton rope. This is also, of course, a natural fiber. So that is a little bit of a more eco-friendly option if that is something you are concerned about. Now, just because cotton cord is the most common and popular choice, you are not limited to just using this cord. Okay? So another great option when it comes to macrame is synthetic fibers. Now here is an example of a synthetic fiber. This is actually paracord. And what is great about using something synthetic is that it can handle a lot of wear and tear. Okay, so if you want to make something that needs to withstand the outdoor weather and elements, synthetic fibers is going to be your best friend. Okay, this will be able to withstand the rain and the heat and all of those things that you might be concerned about if you're designing a piece for the outdoors. Another thing to mention with your synthetic fibers is that you can actually heat fuse the ends of these cords. Okay, so if you ever want to hide any kind of fringe or ends of your ropes or secure the ropes too, you can actually do that by just adding a little bit of heat and melting the ends of your synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers also can come in a ton of different colors and patterns, which is something you're not going to necessarily have as many choices of using cotton cord. Now, other than your synthetic cord and your cotton, there is another natural option that I want to mention, and that is hemp cord, or also called jute. Okay, so your hemp rope and cord is a really fun material because it looks so rustic and natural. But this is not necessarily going to be the best choice for a lot of your projects because it is so rough on the fingers. Okay, you can kind of just tell by looking at it that the fibers really pop out and stick up a lot, and it's just a rougher material because it's just so natural. But you might want to use a material like your hemp cord if you really are looking for that rustic look. Okay, so it kind of just depends on your style if you want to use this cord or not, but it is a great option to have. Okay, so now let's talk about the different styles or types of these ropes. And from here on out, I'm just going to focus on our cotton cords and the styles of these ropes. So there are three main types of cotton cords you can use in your projects, and they are typically called single twisted strand, 3-ply, and braided. Okay, those are your three main types of cotton cords. Now the first cord I'm going to focus on is that single-stranded twisted rope. Okay, so single-stranded twisted rope is where there are a bunch of tiny little strings that are all just twisted together to make one cord. Okay, and if you start to unravel the end, you can definitely see each of those itty-bitty strings. Now what's great about using this kind of cord is that it is very, very soft on your fingers. This is going to be the softest cord you can use out of the three choices. It's also pretty delicate looking, so it really makes those pretty wall hangings. And now the number one reason you might want to use single twisted cotton cord is that you can brush out the ends really, really easily to make beautiful, fluffy fringe. Okay? So if fringe is something that's really important to you and being able to brush and make big tassels or anything like that, you're definitely going to want to choose single-stranded twisted rope. Now the next rope I want to talk about is 3-ply. So 3-ply rope is actually where you have 3 bundles of those groups of string already twisted together, and then those 3 groups are then twisted around itself to make your 3-ply rope. Okay, sometimes this can be done with more of those groups, so you might have 4-ply or even more, but typically you're going to find 3-ply. Now 3-ply is going to be your most textured option. It looks kind of like standard rope that you might think of when you think of the word rope. Okay, so it has that twisted texture in itself. And another great thing about 3-ply is when you unravel the ends, you're actually going to get this really pretty wavy texture. Okay? And if you unravel the ends too to make that wavy texture and you decide you don't like it, you can actually brush it out after you undo it, because then you essentially have 3 of those strands of your single twisted rope. Now another advantage to using 3-ply rope is this is much stronger than your single twisted rope. Okay, so this is really good for plant hangers. It's the #1 kind of cord I like to use personally for plant hangers because it's strong, it's textured, and it's fun to work with. Now the disadvantages to using this cord is that the ends will come unraveled really easily. So you might have to tape your ends once you cut them before you start tying your project, just to help prevent that from happening so you're not fighting with it the whole time. Now lastly, I want to talk about braided cord. Braided cord is different than the others in that the strings are actually braided. So you're going to look at this rope and realize you're not going to be able to get any fringe from this. At least not brushable fringe. You can leave your ends hanging down, and that in itself is fringe, but you're not going to be able to brush this or unravel it to get any of that fun textured or fluffy look. Now braided cord is going to be your strongest cord, so if you have any big weight-bearing projects you have in mind, you might want to use braided cord. I personally like to use braided cord for market bags, but this also looks really great in wall hangings too, and plant hangers or other projects too. Okay, what's nice about braided cord is it is a super beginner friendly cord to work with. Okay, because the ends aren't going to come unraveled and it's not as delicate as your single twisted cord, you can untie your knots as many times as you need to without worrying about the structure coming apart. It's also the least busy looking material, so when you tie your projects, the knots are really going to shine in your work instead of the rope itself. Okay, so here is all 3 different types of cotton rope together. On the left you have that single twist, which is a little less detailed than the other 2 ropes, so it's great if you want a softer look for your project. In the middle you have your 3-ply rope. Now this is going to be the most textured between the 3. Sometimes the texture of the knot, the twisted effect, gives it a little more of a busy look inside the knot. And then on the end here on the right is your braided cord. Now this is the most sturdy and robust rope. So again, this is great for a sturdy structure. It's not going to unravel or fray, so it is especially great for beginners too. So there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to using all 3 styles of ropes, and it really comes down to your personal preference and the look you're going for. So I always recommend playing around with all 3 cords to see which you like best, because really you can't go wrong with any of them. It's also really fun to mix and match your cords into one project. So if you're making a wall hanging, you might want to mix some of the fluffy fringe with your wavy fringe, or you might want to do the structured part with braided cord and then add some tassels using your single stranded rope into your braided cord. Okay, so you can definitely mix and match your cords as well. Now another important thing to consider when picking your macrame cords is the size. You're going to be able to find rope sizing from below 1 millimeter all the way up to 30 millimeter, maybe even bigger. Okay, now the most common size of macrame cords and the size I recommend for beginners and more advanced artists is your 4mm and 5mm, and also your 6mm. That's going to be your happy medium range between not being too small or too big. This size of rope is going to be great for your wall hangings, plant hangers. You can use it for keychains and market bags, and really any project you're going to be able to use this size rope really well. Now, just because these sizes are the most used and popular and what I personally recommend, there are instances where you will want to use the other sizes. So 3mm and smaller is really great if you want to make jewelry and other smaller objects. So this rope is also really good for keychains too. Now, you can of course use this size in wall hangings, but it's important to note that if you use 3mm, it's going to take you a long time to fill the space of your wall hanging and complete your project. If you use a bigger size, such as 9mm, you're going to be able to tie that project really fast because your knots are going to be bigger. Okay? Now, using the smaller rope is also a little more difficult because it's just a small material, so you won't be able to see your knots as well, and it looks way more delicate. Now, when you're using the bigger cords, usually 9mm or 12mm in size, this rope can be useful if you want a chunky wall hanging, okay? If you just want something that's big and chunky and really cool, that's going to be the size you want to go for. You can also make bigger tassels way faster if you use a 9mm or 12mm single-stranded rope, okay? You can just brush it out, and usually you only need one cord to make the same size tassel you might need if you double or triple up your 4mm cords. Okay, so size is, again, it's going to be a personal preference, but most likely you're going to stay in that range of 4 to 6mm. And here are the three different sizes. The smallest on the left is 3mm, you have 5mm in the middle, and our largest 12mm is on the right. Okay, so if you want to use your 3mm, you're going to notice that this is very small compared to the others. So it's really good for an intricate design and those really small pieces like earrings or bracelet or other small objects you might want to make. The 5mm is going to be the size you're going to mostly use. It's just perfect, not being too small or too big. And then this largest 12mm size rope is going to be great for those giant wall hangings you want to make. You're going to get a chunky effect, and also if you use the single twist in this size, you're going to be able to make tassels really fast and get big ones as well. And there you go. So once you get a grasp on your different materials, style of material, and sizing, you'll be able to pick the proper rope for your macrame projects. Just remember that there is no right or wrong choice when it comes to picking material for your projects. As long as you can tie a knot with it, you can make macrame with it.